Dr. Eric, Chiropractic, and today we're going to be talking about radiating pain. Here we go. Right, so radiating pain is commonly referred to as radiculopathy. This is pain that can affect their symptoms rather that can affect the arms, they can affect down into the legs. Typically you'll experience burning, you'll experience pain, maybe some weakness, or some general soreness. That could be a throbbing ache, a dull ache, things like that. The pain can either go down one side of the body or the other. Sometimes it can be both. The pain can be constant or it can be intermittent. It can depend on the activity that you've done. It can also be dependent upon your posture, right? So if you're someone who sits for a long period of day and then the pain comes versus somebody who's standing and walking and physically exerting and then they feel the leg go, that's also symptoms as well. And also the time of the day. Some people, they have radiating pain at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. So structure versus function. Our spines are segmented, right? We have 7 bones in the neck, which we refer to as the cervical spine. There are 12 in our mid-back, which is called the thoracic spine. You have 5 that are larger still in the lumbar spine, and then you have a fused bone, which is called our sacrum or the tailbone, right? So that collective amalgamation of bones, they're stacked in a specific way. There's different curvatures down the spine, kind of like a sinusoidal wave, and what that does is that allows the body to act as a shock absorber, and what that does is that allows us to kind of dissipate some of the stressors that are going on into the body. So each of these regions, the neck, the mid-back, the lower back, and the tailbone, the sacrum, each of them has a curve. This curve is designed by nature, and it allows these curves to act as shock absorbers against daily stressors and the postures that we put our body in. So the curves in our neck, our mid-back, and our lower back, yes, they do adapt to the stressors that we put our bodies through, but they do accommodate as we put our bodies through our paces during day-to-day living. So if you're someone who does too much sitting, like an office worker, or if you're a laborer who's constantly doing a lot of bending and reaching and twisting, what you're going to start to do, or if you're athletic, for example, or if you're someone who's been working for many years, or if you're someone who had an old injury from way back when, an old sports injury or a motor vehicle accident, your body keeps score. So those natural curves that we had into our body, they can actually start to accommodate and start to shift because we've been putting our bodies through these different positions for long periods of time. So the vertebrae, which are the bones in our body, there's a disc that separates each of those vertebrae. So between the 2 bones, you have a disc and then another and another and another. And what that does is it allows space and allows cushioning for the nerves to exit the spine that supply our tissues. So the tissues, the muscles, the organs, and the gland. Over time, these discs can actually start to thin out, and what happens is when the disc starts to thin out, we call that compression, and between each of the vertebrae there's an opening, kind of a hole, and that's where those nerves exit to kind of feed into the rest of the body. And because the disc got thin, the nerve actually has a little bit less of an opening with which to pass through, meaning that it's more susceptible to damage and injury if you overexert your body or if you put your body in positions for long periods of time. The discs themselves are very complex, right? And people kind of oversimplify this, but I really kind of want to make sure that you understand what's going on with the disc. So there's an outer ring of the disc, and then there's a gelatinous material that's housed within the disc. And what ends up happening is the outer layer, it's built up of an interwoven connective tissue, and it supports that gelatinous core that's on the inside, and that's what allows us to move. If the entire disc, for example, was full of that stiff connective tissue, our spines would also be stiff as well. So we need that inner layer to allow us to kind of move around, to allow the body to accommodate. What ends up happening is when that outer layer, that thickened outer layer gets damaged over time, some of those fibers, they actually start to break. So if you kind of think of my fingers as interwoven, your body starts to put more space between, and that's what allows the inner walls of the disc to start to become damaged, and then that inner material, that inner core, can actually start to permeate and push through those layers. So if you think of like your favorite t-shirt that you wash and wash and wash, you'll notice that's become a little bit more threadbare, or maybe there's some holes. That's kind of what happens to the disc over time as we start to wear it out. Once the disc has worn down significantly in one particular area, that disc material inside can start to migrate into that area, and that's what can cause a physical obstruction into the spinal cord itself, and that's what we call predominantly a disc bulge. because the inner material of the disc that was once internally kept, it starts to kind of migrate outwards. Once it escapes, it can start to create an opportunity for pain to occur. And that's when people say, I have pain that goes down one leg, or I have pain that goes down to the other leg. Once the body senses that there's been this invasion, this invasion of space, it elicits a chemical cascade, and that's what we interpret as pain, right? So the disc can actually, yes, physically put compression onto the cord, but the disc can also sit into that space, and the body says, well, there's something here that's not supposed to be here. So it sends out that pain cascade, and that's what drives up that pain signal. And that's when we start to say, oh my God, I can't bend or twist or move. It's really, really hurting my body. What happens is when you ignore these symptom pains, your body's going to start to kind of make the pain worse, and it's going to make it worse, and it's going to make it worse. So what ends up happening is you can start to see some symptoms like muscle tissues getting atrophy. The numbness can actually start to go down the leg, or the numbness may stay local, but it intensifies. The chiropractic adjustments, what we do as chiropractors is we help to interrupt this chemical barrage that's happening onto the body, because we provide what we call structural relief, right? So when we take physical pressure or compression off of the spine, it allows the disc to begin to naturally heal itself, and it's going to start to deflame those surrounding tissues, which is going to reduce that chemical cascade, and it's going to start to allow healing to begin into the body, right? So for example, if I take my finger, and it may be hard to see this, and if I were to tie a string around my finger, if I just hold it like this, my finger is going to start to turn red, right? Because I'm restricting the blood flow into the area. So when I have blood flow that's been restricted, if I'm able to take the pressure off that system, the coloration of my finger will start to come back to normal. So that's essentially what we do as chiropractors, but we're helping to take the chemical compression out as well as the structural compression out by working into the body via the chiropractic adjustment. How is that different from medication? Can I just use medication? That's a great question. Medication, what it does is it focuses on the chemical inflammation, whereas chiropractic focuses on the structural inflammation. And in my opinion, that's quite a huge difference. A lot of patients, they'll come in and they'll say, hey doc, I've had this pain for a couple of months, couple of weeks. I've tried the usual, I've tried the ibuprofen, the Advil, the Tylenol, the Aleve, and I'm not getting any relief, right? And the reason being is because when you have so much structural compression onto the spinal cord and you're taking the medication, there could be so much internal inflammation that the medication is not even getting you close to baseline. And what's happening is there's a saturation point in the body, right? So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take a certain dosage of a particular pain medication over the counter, and it's not working. So then they take more, and then they take more, and then they take more. So you've reached a saturation point where you can no longer receive any benefit from taking that medication, and you may start to switch to different over-the-counters, and none of them are working for you because you've exceeded the limitation of the medication. And that's where chiropractic thrives, because we're able to take that, help you kind of get over that hump so that you can start to feel better and do better. So can a disc heal? And the answer is yes, good disc can heal. What they do is they kind of callus over. So if you think of like any scars on your body, right, you'll notice that the scar looks different than the surrounding tissue. Maybe the scar could be tender to the touch, and it can also be a little bit painful when you touch that area as opposed to other areas. I'm just touching one that's on my wrist right now. So what happens is, yes, the outer areas have healed and they've kind of knitted back together as best as the body can, but those areas will never be as strong as the original material that you had. And what that means is that if you're someone who has chronic pain, for example, in the lower back on the right side, you're always going to have, whenever your back goes out on you, it's always going to affect that predominant side, because that's the side that's been taking the hits the longest, right? So you're always going to have to know going through life that you have to take it easy on that one particular side so that you don't keep having these repeat flare-ups, and you can be in control of your pain. If you're someone who's had a disc problem, will you be susceptible to having problems in the future? And the answer is it depends, right? When you see a chiropractor, our goals are your goals. What we want to do is we want to manage your expectations about what you can expect from us, but what we also want to do is we want to give you the tools to help your body moving forward so that you're not forever dependent upon us. So the analogy is, I catch the first couple of fish for you, I hand you the fishing pole, I teach you how to fish, and then life goes on. So that takes the form of corrective exercises, that takes care of things like mobility exercises and stability exercises, strengthening exercises, so that you can kind of bridge the gap between visits so that your body's more durable long term. What we want to do is we want to reinforce good habits, good patterns, and good behaviors, and we want to replace that with old habits, old patterns, and old behaviors that no longer suit you, right? Because if we're constantly falling into that old trap of, I did this thing and my pain came back, and I did this thing and my pain came back, then we're not learning anything. But if we can teach you how to kind of navigate your world a little bit differently, then we're going to set you up for success lifelong. So the other analogy that I like to give is, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten, right? So how can you expect to get positive change and long-lasting change if you keep referring to things that don't serve you or that are not improving your care? So that's something where we thrive as chiropractors, is we kind of take what you know and we kind of upgrade and we kind of re-educate you so that you can make better choices moving down the road. Co-managing care with chiropractic care. Right? So what ends up happening is people will come in, or they'll call and they'll say, hey doc, you were recommended to me by a patient, just to let you know, I just had a surgery, or I just had a spinal injection, can I see you? So we'll talk about it over the phone and we'll see what's going on. But the answer is yes, we can co-manage care with people who have received spinal surgeries and also injections as well. What we do is we talk about the patient in terms of what their medical doctor told them to do and things to avoid, and we tend to second those because we want the patient to heal as much as possible. What we do is, it depends on where the work was done and how recently it was done. You know, if you're someone who just got out of surgery with the knee, you say, hey doc, can I get my lower back adjusted? I'll say, well, what does the knee look like? And they say, well, it's still kind of weeping blood a little bit, you know, this, that, and another. I'll say, well, I don't think you're a candidate to come into the office, but what we can do is I can give you some home care instructions to kind of help to work the muscle tissues around the hip that you can do on your own as your body's healing. Then in a couple of weeks, then you can come to see me in the office, for example. What we do as chiropractors is people who come in with injections or surgeries, is we can work above and below the site that was previously worked on, so that we can kind of let that site do its thing and heal while working safely above and safely below. We also co-manage care with different healthcare practitioners. We co-manage care with physical therapists, which I think are fantastic professionals, as well as medical doctors and other health practitioners that we work with, because as all healthcare practitioners, think of it like a sports team, right? It's great to have one player that excels above all the other players, but everybody around him or her makes that player the best player, and collectively as a team, you win as a team. So for us as a chiropractor, when I'm on your healthcare team, we co-manage with all the other individuals that are also on your healthcare team, so we all best help you, because you are the star athlete, and we want to hold you up on that pedestal of life so that you can continue to do everything that you love to do. So the call to action is, if you or somebody that you know is having a radiculopathy, whether it's down the arm, whether it's down both arms, whether it's down both legs, one leg or the other, don't hesitate to give them our contact information. We are available over the phone. You can also send me an email if it's something personal that you have questions about. Always happy to field questions about any radiculopathy. If I think you're the right place to come to our office in terms of first visit care, or if I think you'd be better served to go see somebody else. We always let patients know on the first visit, because my goals are your goals, like I had mentioned. We want to make sure that we set you up for success moving forward.